So in this video what we're going to be doing is looking at creating this hard surface camera type object. The aims of it are to use a Boolean workflow, creating different cuts or customized cuts to create detail following a hard surface modeling process. So I hope you enjoy the video and we'll jump straight into it. Okay, so let's start with a cube. I'm just going to adjust the length. So we've got something like that. I'll set up my stack in here. So what I like to do is use chamfer, so we can add some segments to there, and I'll just change the sort of weight value there. Maybe drop this to 2. If this was for a game, you know, you'd have to scale this correctly. I mean, like for example, Unreal unit, so one Unreal unit is equal to like 1 cm, so obviously this would not be to scale for that, but certainly for your viz stuff and concepting, you know, this is acceptable to do. So we can add a symmetry on here, and I'll throw a weighted normals as well on top, just so we can clean up any sort of issues with the normals. So let's do a rect first of all. In actual fact, I'll just jump into the front view, just drag one of these out, and we'll get a cut along the top edge here. So when I'm sort of like designing these, I'm trying to think of, you know, the sort of cut angles and the things that I kind of want. So I'm just gonna run this sort of detail along here, like that. Then what I can do is just make sure my cut is picked, and I can subtract that now. It should go to the other side there, so that's quite nice. I can, with this sort of workflow as well, what's really good is, you know, I can constantly change these. So I feel like, you know, this needs to be a bit bigger or a bit thicker. I can come into the Boolean operation and I can change that. I can also change the extrusion amount and the size here as well, so I can actually update these as well from here, so you can see you can get, you know, some interesting sort of results there, which is always quite nice. So let's have another look. We'll get our 45 and grab this. We can use this for some sort of maybe panel detailing at the side here, so just jump in like so. I won't do the scale now. I'll change the length of it rather than sort of trying to scale, because these become distorted. So if I was to sort of scale from there, you can just make sure that this is the cutter object, and then, you know, we've got a nice sort of panel detail in. And the chamfers themselves, if we go to the chamfers and we look here, this is all dependent on, say, your purpose and how thick you want this, because for a games mesh you're probably going to want these a little bit sort of thicker. You know, for your viz work you might want these just turned down. There's the issue with the weighted normals there. So if you put the weighted normals on, just jump in here, that should get rid of that. Let's just see, I think if we do it there, and I'll just take a look, I think, there we go. So the chamfer needs to be on top there, because it's welding these points, so that's fine. So yeah, as I was saying, you know, with the thickness, you want to control it. So just by having that sort of chamfer in there, you can sort of adapt your workflow for games, or perhaps maybe, you know, your viz work or whatever it is you might be working on. Let's grab this piece here now, and what I can do is just, whoops, no, I don't want to do that. I'm going to my Boolean operation. I want to grab this box here. I'm going to hold shift and just bring it sort of down here. I think we can mirror this in the y-axis as well, so we can just mirror this over and we can get something like that. I think that's alright. It doesn't have to be spot on, you know, I could mirror it a bit closely, but I think that'll do for this concept here. Let's do another rect. So I'm just going to jump into the top view. Let's grab sort of here. We can do something maybe for, you know, you've got to think of the designs, right? So is it going to be sort of maybe a battery pack area, or is there something along the side here that we can sort of put in, which is reflective of some type of detail that's on here, like some functionality. So with this, in this stack, I can use an edit poly now. Let's grab these edges. So we can just go ahead, grab them, and we can do a chamfer on those. So I can just bring that out like so. And then we can increase that sort of res there, that resolution. So that's not bad. And then we can perhaps cut this in. Could maybe make it a little bit bigger as well. So if I do change this now, it's going to give me a warning to say, the edit poly in the stack. So as long as I don't sort of change this shape, we should be all right with the edit poly here. So it shouldn't affect it. So let's have a look. I can make this a bit sort of larger. We sort of get this detail. Maybe what I want to do is just run this straight through like that. So I can probably put another piece in there. So let's clone this. We'll keep this handy. Put it into a copy there. We've got one of these. Let's create this and subtract it. So I can just maybe scale this section a little bit. Let's have a look there. I should have done my subtraction. So let's go back into my Boolean. Yeah, it's on there. I don't know whether I'm on the right side there. Let's have a look. Okay, that makes sense. I'm on the wrong side. So, okay, so quick fix for that. Let's just get rid of that Boolean there. And what we'll do is I'll just exit off that. Let's select this piece and we can just get this over. And what I'll do is we should be able to mirror it in the X. There we go. And then we can clone that one like so. So rect's free, and we've got the cutter there now. So if we do a subtraction, I'll subtract from the side there, which is quite nice. And then we've got this piece that we can use. So we could potentially scale this a little bit, bring it in like this, and then we can have it maybe as a bit of detail on there. We've got the edit poly as well, so we can sort of edit this. You can, at this stage, you can collapse these stacks as well. So it's really important to sort of think about the stack as well, because if you're doing a lot of these cuts, if you're doing a lot of things like this, the stack can become quite busy. And depending on your computer as well, if you're running quite a lot in here, it can cause some issues and stuff a little bit later on. So let's just chamfer this up, and we'll use a radial. Let's grab that, and we can just change its value amount here, something like that. I think that's pretty good. And what I'm going to do is I'll edit this bit of detail here. So we'll grab this rect here. And we've got the extrusion on, and we've also got the edit poly as well. So we've got an extrusion there. So let's just turn that like that. So something, get it like that. And then in here we can add sort of a Boolean as well to this. So we can add some custom sort of Boolean operation here. We can do, we can put in, we just jump into that front view, put in a rect like so, and then what we can do is, rotate this about 45, bring this in. I think maybe I did about 40 for that, so something like that. Jump back into that perspective view. And again, I'm switching between the custom tool and the 3ds Max sort of default ones as well. So I don't need to stick with my tool at all on this. And what you'll see is that I often switch between the two anyway. We can subtract that. And what I've got to be careful of here is this sort of overlap. So one way we might be able to sort of fix it is first just trying to adjust the actual Boolean itself. So if we jump in here, we do operations, let's grab it, and we can just try and sort of push and pull this to maybe about there, something like that. So what's actually happened is the angle here on the edit poly. So we've got the edit poly, and you can see with that it's obviously been cut a little bit too far in, or the chamfer's been applied too much, so this bit's sort of overlapping there. So we just got to consider that really with your angles and stuff. I think that's okay. Let's grab the chamfer again. Let's just do sort of maybe increase the minimum angle. I think that's all right. Do we want that one? Yeah, I think something like this. And then what we'll do is I'll just turn this chamfer down a bit more because it doesn't need to be huge on that. We've got a nice sort of, again, little bit of detail in there. That's supportive of the geometry inside as well. So you can just use M on the keyboard, and what I'll do is I'll just sample this and drag our material on there, just so we can sort of see it in how it's looking really. So that's not bad. You know, we could maybe push this in a little bit more. It's supposed to be sort of hanging over there, something like this. And then of course we've got the weighted normals modifier to sort of place on there as well. So that's not bad. And then, you know, there's more detail that we could put on possibly this shape. So let's just jump into here. Let's add a circle. You know, this could be sort of like a section for maybe a plug or something that's sort of underneath. Now, just keep in mind where this is going to sort of go. So we need to get the segments right first of all. So something like this. And then we've got to make sure that this sort of chamfer here doesn't hit each part here, as it'll cause some issues. So let's do the extrusion. So you should get that extruded. We can bring this hopefully sort of all the way up now. Probably need a bit more there than what we've got. Have a look at that. So we want to make sure that cutter's selected. We've got box 1 there, can subtract there. And you know, you've got a bit of detail maybe for sort of a pipe or something that's, you know, needs to be added there, which is quite nice. And it doesn't need to all interconnect. You know, we can go back here, we can create a clone of this like so. And again with this, let's just change the cutter, subtract, grab this, and we can change the radius down here. So we can change that. We can just try and push that in a little bit more maybe. Change that radius a bit more there. I think something like that. And this could connect on now, so we could maybe connect this here to this. So if we go up to the Boolean, have a look at where this is going to line up. So again, we've got a bit of an issue with this here because that'll overlap and it'll create some sort of pull in there. But if we get it about there, that should work. And what we should be able to do is grab the Boolean operation, and we should be able to union that. And there we go, got some nice sort of, you know, pipe detail outside there now. So stuff starting to build up on the sort of model here. It's quite good. You know, we can grab this sort of piece here. So let's just get off my operations a second. Oops. Let's just grab, you know, this here. We can just, whoops. Let's have a look. I think I'm on, which one am I selecting? Should be that one. Okay, I think maybe I joined that to the wrong one there. Let's have a look. Okay, there we go. I think I actually attached it to this by accident, so I've just gone back there. There you go. And what I can do is just grab that. Let's move it over. Let's use a mirror. We've got that roughly in sort of a decent place there. You know, and you could move it up quite easily. You know, we can have that sort of there. So that's starting to take sort of some nice nice sort of shape there, which is always good to see. What we could do as well, if I'm not entirely happy with this block here, I can grab it and we can just move that detail down. So again, it's a really nice sort of workflow there. Got this piece as well at the bottom, so let's just go back in there. We can grab these two pieces, we can just move it maybe a bit further down, and then we can grab these two pieces as well, and we can just move them and adjust them. So really nice sort of like non-destructive workflow. Again, it works at the moment because we've not got as much in here, but if you start really increasing sort of the detail in here, and you start doing like a bunch of different stuff, it's gonna it'll soon start lagging. So let's have a look, and maybe we just push this one back down here a little bit. Could even run that going right across as well. That could actually probably run right across here. You can see it's actually adding the detail, but we'll keep it right about here for now. I think maybe something there like so. So let's have a look at this front section here as well. So we need to get some detail on here. So let's just do into the left view. We can do another sort of rectangle and bring this sort of in, line it up, and probably something maybe like this. So we just sort of scale this a little bit, and then what we can do is just push it sort of across inwards like that. Navigate to about here. I'll add an edit poly onto this, and then what we can do is sort of chamfer that. So we can just give this a chamfer, and I'll turn down that so we get a nice sort of angle there on that chamfer, and then we can sort of get this into maybe about there. Make sure it's selected as the cutter and subtract. So we've got a sort of a nice sort of piece now shaping up there. We can also, with this as well, so if I do my surface sort of alignment there, and I just sort of click in here and do the rect, it'll align to the surface. So I can use the local sort of movement now just to align this where I want. Something maybe here, I reckon. Let's just change the sort of length there on that. We'll push that out a little bit, and then should be able to add a edit poly to this, and try and create some sort of detail here. So we'll add those chamfers in. Oops. Get that nice and smooth. Click OK. I'm just going to make sure I've got the cutter selected, and we can subtract that. I think maybe it was on the wrong side there, so let's grab that. We will mirror it. Should XY, no, C, oh, it's because I'm local, so just remirror. There we go. And then we can just bring that across. So we've got something like that. And we can subtract that as well. And we've got these, really nice sort of cut detail sort of in there now, taking shape. Quite good. And we can still play with the chamfer as well. We can still make that a bit thicker if we want, a bit thinner, depending on your sort of needs as well. So still quite a nice sort of shape there. Similar with this one here, if we want to make this a bit thicker, we can come in and we can make it a little bit thicker there, make it a bit sort of softer looking. You can see here where sort of the Boolean on this one needs adjusting now. You can just pull that out a little bit more like so, which is quite nice. Could extract that, do an edit poly as well, maybe put a you know, different sort of mesh in there if we wanted to. So all sorts of different types of things really we can do. So with this one here, you can see we're getting sort of issues in that chamfer area. So we'd have to just tweak this like that. Just make sure that nothing's sort of pulling or overlapping on there. If it is, you know, it happens. Sometimes you've got to go in, you've got to manually clean these things up. It's just you know, it is what it is in terms of the workflow. You can hold that. We can just have a look and just see if we can shape there. It's pretty good. Something like that maybe. Yeah, I'm just being creative, just being a bit experimental here now, just sort of going through. I think we'll leave it as it sort of was on the cylinder. I feel like that was pretty good. It might be worth with it, you know, getting the cylinder, and just for design purposes, you know, we can drop that sort of in that gap there as well. So just makes it a bit cleaner, a bit tidier, but yeah, different sorts of workflows and stuff that we can do. Okay, so we got bits on here, other things, you know, we might want to do. So if we do, let's just grab in here now. Let's put some detail along the top. So we need to, you know, place a rectangle there. Let's grab this, and we'll just change that a little bit. We'll grab that along the top there, and what I want to do is cut some of this off now. So just grab that. I'll make sure my current thing is selected. So we've got something like that. Let's grab the Boolean here, and or maybe get it like that. We could try and even rotate this a little bit, make it a bit more, the design a bit more interesting, sort of there. Maybe it comes to about there, and then what we can do with that is we'll do another cut on here, which would be quite nice to do. And this is about, you know, shape language. It's about building up interesting forms now. And I think, you know, this workflow, the Boolean workflow, it's one of the good ones to do it. You know, you can build up quite a lot quite quickly. So if we do another sort of rect here, we can grab this, bring it into here like so. So we're going to have it maybe from about here, and just push that in. I think it needs to be on. Is it on? Yeah, I think it's this side, the symmetry. So if we grab this, let's do in actual fact, we'll adjust the size of it first. So let's just adjust that a little bit so the cut's nice and clean. And what we'll do is I'll add the edit poly on here now. And what I want to do is just create a nice sort of transitional shape almost. So if we do a chamfer on that, bring that to about there. Oops, need to deselect the edges there. So let's just deselect those edges like so. And then again, just make sure my cut is selected. We can subtract that. And then we've got like a real nice sort of transitional sort of shape detail there. We could push that all the way through as well. It doesn't need to be sort of connected there. So if we grab this again, you know, it could even sit inside like that. It can be on the outside. We could scale this as well. We don't need to always go back into the tool itself. You know, something along those lines, and then we've got a bit of an interesting shape now. It's starting to, you know, the shape language is really starting to yeah, it's really starting to cut in and get that that sort of detail. Other things that we might want to add, so for this section here, maybe we want a sort of bit of a paneling or something. So if we just jump to the top view, and we'll use the line, so it's sort of line spline here, and I'll do it from about here. So we'll do something like that, I reckon. What we'll do is we'll just estimate it roughly in the middle here. Let's go into perspective view. So I'm hoping that's going to be a nice cut for us. We'll use an extrusion on this. Let's increase that size, and then we should be able to do is use a shell. But what I don't want it too thick. I want this, you know, quite thin. So we want a thin shell like that. We should be able to select this as the cutter and then subtract it. So let's just see what we've got. I've made that mistake again. I'm on the wrong side here. It should be the other side. So let's select this. Let's mirror it over. Let's grab that there. So we need to be on the right side. Grab that there, and then just make sure I've got my line, and then subtract that. So you can see there's a bit of a gap there in the middle. So what I need to do with that is just push it over ever so slightly more. So let's grab this, let's push it over. There we go. And I can, you know, maybe make this a little bit smaller there. Should be able to hold shift as well, and maybe put panel piece down here like so. So now it's got, you know, a few bits of detail there, and you know, you got to check and just make sure they're holding up. I'm not too bothered, because if this was a high poly anyway, we're not going to bake down, and you know, if I could, you know, if we're going to remesh this, you know, I'd definitely block that out inside. But I mean, for some sort of quick panel detail, that's pretty good. We can put maybe a catch or something in here as well. So this could be sort of an area where an attachment's going to be or something. So what we could do for this is, again, think about the purpose of the design, think about the line work that you're doing and how you can support that detail. So for me, what might be good here is if we add some sort of catch detail on the top here. So if we bring our cube up, let's grab the align tool. We'll select our piece here. I only want it to align to the X position, so it's along the top, and we should be able to just adjust sort of this here so we can make it sort of supportive of this feature. So we've got this nice sort of feature here. We could, if we wanted to, you know, I mean, there's different sorts of things you're going to want to experiment, but if we grab this and maybe do the quad, I'll turn off the segments because this will help a little bit with maybe push that in. So this will help with sort of the chamfering a little bit in a moment's time. So we can make sure this is selected, and we can subtract that now. So now what we've got is that supportive sort of detail there. So you can see at the moment where it's sort of messing up around the edges. So there's a bit of an overlap there. So if we grab this again, let's go to the Booleans, let's grab this. So I think I've pushed this down a little bit, probably too much or not enough. So we can just move that sort of feature there. And then we've got now like a placement for a clip between two sort of panel details. And you know, if you think this is a bit too sort of thick here, so if we just jump into this view, you have a look and we've got the panel details, you know, we can use this mesh and scale it down, and we can block this up a little bit. But what we want to do is, with that, we've got the access to the shell here, so we can actually just reduce this detail down a little bit like so. So it's a very fine panel, similar to this piece here as well, because we copied two across. So was it this one? Yeah, so we copied this one, should have the shell on as well. And again, you know, we can come down and we can just reduce that down so it's nice and tight. And then if we jump back into that perspective view, you're going to see there now that we've got some really nice sort of detail shaping up. So there's a good sort of shape language to that, if you like. So it's really nice. And you know, we can support this as well with some extruded detail as well. So we could extrude some parts out as well. It doesn't always have to be cut in. What I would say here now, it might be nice to just add sort of an additional piece like this here. So we might want to just come into that top view, just grab this here. The reason the top view is different as well is because I'm in standard mode, not DirectX shader mode there, so just a little bit different. So with this operations, we've got the rectangle there. What we could do is extract the operation as a copy, so that will maintain the detail inside of here, but we've got the original detail still in. So now we could use maybe this, you know, we could maybe adjust, oh, here'll be the height here, the extrusion. So let's just, you know, grab this here. You know, we could keep that on if we wanted, and something like that. We can scale this down a little bit. I'll show you a good technique that I like to use in a moment. So you can get that sort of to scale there. Let's grab that sort of rectangle and we can adjust that and maybe just bring that width in a little bit there. So we've got this sort of piece in here. Probably need scaling a little bit more, maybe, just to make sure the edges are prominent. And then what we can do is a double chamfer. So we can do a double chamfer stack. So all those edges are going to chamfer now. I can grab my material in here. And if we just have a little look at that, we've got ourselves like a real nice sort of catch, or the impressions of a catch. And you know, you could edit this a little bit more, supportive of sort of the detail there. So it's quite nice. You know, it's you know, you can get that in there and stuff, and you know, you might want to do a different type of catch, which is, yeah, absolutely fine. So yeah, we've got a bit more detail in. Other things that we can do is look for there's always like little screws and bolts and things like that, so you can definitely look to put them in on here, so parts of the panel. So for example, it might be that we've got some screw holes at the back here, so what we want to do is we'll add a circle in there, like so. We got a circle. Well, it will be a circle in a moment when I put the step count up. So let's just grab that. I think the default was like 11 or something. So we can grab, you know, this here. I think in actual fact we'll do it along here. Let's just adjust the radius, and we'll just adjust that extrusion as well, because they don't need to be super deep, these. Grab something maybe there. I reckon that'll be okay. And what I'll do is I'll just create this as a clone. So let's just do a clone here and make sure we've got our picker selected, subtract that, so we've got the detail in here. I'm just gonna get this sort of down like so. Just push this in, and we can use a chamfer on that. Let's use the quad. Let's just turn it down. We've got a nice quad there now. Maybe, yeah, something like that, so the detail holds up. And then what we can do is do that double chamfer stacked. And again, this is really good for your viz stuff, so we can get like a really nice sort of edge on that. And we've got, you know, really nice sort of bit of detail, hard detail transition into a softer area, and we've got some sort of like a decent effect there. And you know, we can push these in a little bit, and we can have a look, and then we've got a really nice sort of screw detail. And you know, these things that we don't like, I can always come back in, I can remove things. So you can see I can take things out. I don't have to have, you know, this panel detail in. We could just leave that sort of blank, sorry, the piece at the side. I can just, you know, get rid of that. Maybe it's just part of the feature there. We can just have that, you know, that way, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I'm not keen on these blocks. I'm not keen, but I think that looks a little bit better. Really, it gives it a bit more, you know, like something goes here. But yeah, we've got that detail, and then, you know, because we've got that screw in there now, we've got that screw detail. We can grab that, hold shift, you know, copy maybe it here, like so. Give it a minute to, you know, catch up. And as I say, you know, this, it does get a bit sort of busy in terms of the detail and stuff. So, you know, I've got to give it a bit of time to sort of, you know, get things right there. And, you know, it's just a case of, you know, holding shift, bringing these to the other side. You know, we can eyeball them in. Doesn't have to be super sort of detailed in terms of its alignment, but yeah, we've got some nice sort of parts now starting to shape up. You know, some nice sort of features there. Yeah, I'm not 100% happy with this on the side. I don't really like it, to be honest. I don't like that detail, but again, I should be able to go back now in this stack. So if we have a look at, I think it might be this one. And what we can do is we can cut out the detail we don't like. So I can get rid of that, and we can come into here, and you know, I can sort of change this if you know, if I want to. I can really edit this. I can change it. I can change sort of the features on here. So perhaps we want to make this, in actual fact, a bit sort of shorter. So do it like that instead. So we've got a nice click, sort of an indentation or something, which is supportive of this here, I think, which is quite nice. What we could do, in fact, is grab this bit here. So again, if you think of your design and you're thinking sort of hard surface, in terms of hard surface, you know, we could think of this piece here, and what we could do is just cycle through. So we could cut, maybe we want to cut that piece out. We want to grab this, and we can use this as that repeated detail. So we can come in here and add a bit of a sort of a repeat pattern. You can see it's starting to lag now. You know, it's not going to run smoothly all the way through, because it's getting incredibly, you know, there's a lot of operations in here, but it's you know, it's doing a good job. So let's get on to sort of the front here. So, you know, different ideas on how you might want to sort of approach this and what you want to include. You know, we can jump into the front view. Let's create a cylinder there. We'll just increase that radius. It's going to have to be quite large for the camera section. So let's do alignment. We can grab that. Let's do X. So it's central. I'm going to that perspective view. Need to bring on the sort of wireframe here and just have a look really at where this is best aligning. I think maybe something like here. I think we'll get away with it. I'm just having a look at this feature as well. So let's do the extrusion here and take that way. So I'm hoping that aligns quite nicely. I think that'll be okay. So let's do a clone of that. Click copy there, and what we'll do is I'll make sure that cut is selected. Subtract first of all. Let's hide this section here, and I'll just have a look at what we've got. This, I'm not too worried about this because you're not going to see it inside anyway. But what I'm looking for is this bit here. So you can still see there's a few errors sort of in the shading, but it's not done a bad job. That's all right. I think we've got some nice sort of detail there. Shading's holding up okay. There's a few issues here, but again, you know, you've got to think as well, if it's not going to be seen, you know, does it really matter? I mean, for the wireframe, if you're going to do a game from this and you're going to build a base mesh over the top, really, you know, you're looking for these edges and stuff. So, okay, so we've got that feature in there. Oops. Let's unhide all. So what we can do now is I'm just going to adjust the radius on this a little bit. Let's add a edit poly to this. We'll grab that, hold shift, bring this in. We should be able to hold shift again, and there we go, we've got our lens. And then of course we're going to do a chamfer. We're going to use the quad. I'll just adjust that radius to about there. Let's turn off the segment here, and then I'll do a double chamfer stacked. Let's use a radial. We'll get this nice and sort of tight on there. And if we look in that, you know, in the perspective view, we've got quite a nice sort of shape there. sort of stacking up with that. I think this one here, it would be good if we could get this in to be a little bit sort of denser, so on the step amount here. I'm not sure how far we can sort of push it. We're just got to be careful that it doesn't sort of overlap too much. I think that's better. It's a little bit smoother there, so let's just have a look. I think that's much better there. So now if we just turn off that wireframe, so have a look at that. We've got a nice sort of cut detail, you know, into the model there. That's pretty good. Then what we can do is we want to put a sort of, I suppose it's going to be a sort of lens or something. Yeah, it'd be a lens. So let's grab a sphere. We'll just drag that out like so. So let's just bring this sort of forward like that, and we'll do the alignment. Oops, do the alignment with this one. So we'll just do align it centrally, and we should be able to cut this. So let's have a look. Just sort of cut this and do a mirror like so. So we've got a sort of a lens there. Let's change that radius a little bit on that. Got like sort of that sort of lens now in there, which looks, you know, it's looking pretty good. We can put our material on, you know, just check it out, make sure everything's sort of all sort of clean and tidy, which is pretty nice. So we can add a few more details. So again, don't forget intersecting sort of panel bits. You know, it's always good to add in little features here. So it might be worth just jumping in. Let's see if I can turn to that right view, just so I'm on the correct side. And what we can do is just grab that. Let's move it over anyway. And maybe, you know, we want some detail here. It doesn't have to be huge. Sort of grab something along there. And the extrusion on this one's quite big, so we can just get that sort of down there. And we can see what we get. Let's see what it looks like. So just make sure I've got my cutter picked, and then we can subtract that. So we've got another nice sort of panel area or something there on the side, just sort of building up, which is quite nice. Might be worth changing that, in fact. So if we just do a good tip as well, if you know, if it starts getting really busy, this the Boolean, what you can do is you can always extract the operation. So we can always grab that and extract it, and then we can do our edits. So it just makes it a little bit sort of friendlier, I suppose, in terms of its workflow. So let's just scale that like so. I think something there, and then again just pick the cutter, subtract that. I think that's better. That looks a little bit better to me. Seems to fit quite nicely. I mean, I've not done the underneath, but you know, we're starting to build up quite a nice sort of shape really for this. It's looking quite good. What I'll do is let's grab that operation again. So if we just come down in our Boolean modifier, let's just scroll down here and right click, and we'll extract operation as clone. We can grab this, let's do a chamfer. We'll just do a 2-part, and we can just get that. And there we go, we'll just get the sort of edge on there, and probably just reduce that down a little bit, and then we can copy that sort of clip or bracket across to the other side. So it looks like this is sort of, you know, it's starting to build up like a mechanical sort of camera now. It's starting to, you know, build up these key features, if you like, that are in there. You know, it looks like these sort of clip together or something, which is pretty good. We could do other things as well, so we could do some supportive detail along the top here as well, so it might be worth looking at that maybe. So we can do other little bit pieces here. So just jump into that top view, do sort of a rect there, and then we'll do grab this, you know, bring it up. We've got that sort of bit of detail in here. So, you know, we could look to maybe adjust this like so, something like that. We'll just scale it up a little bit. It's probably going to have to come all the way out like this. Just get it about there, and then we'll add, or we can convert to editable poly just to keep the stack a bit lighter now, and grab these edges, put the wireframe on. Let's use a chamfer. Oops. Let's just do that again. Chamfer there. I think, have I turned? Okay. So I think what's happened there is because I've collapsed it. So I said you can use it, but this highlights some of the issues with the scaling and stuff. So sometimes, you know, if you start scaling along here, you've got to use a reset X form and stuff. So again, probably best using sort of the parametric elements of the design really. So I think this should work now. So let's do, that's what I'm presuming happened anyway. Edit poly, let's grab this, let's grab that again, and I'm hoping the chamfer works now. Yeah, so much better. So again, we can just try and get this sort of supporting sort of that shape there a little bit, and then what we can do is, you know, we can look to have this as sort of our cutter object, and then we can subtract, and we've got a bit more sort of detail now that's starting to take place. Could probably push that down. Do we pushing that down a little bit more? Just given where it is. So let's just grab that there. Maybe something like this. It's pretty good. Still a little bit off there on the edge. So we've got some more sort of mechanical detailing. It's probably a bit bare on this bit, so I think maybe it might be worth putting maybe a dial on here or something. So again, we'll just jump into the top view. Let's grab a cylinder. We'll do an alignment, so we can just sort of align that. Let's do perspective, and we only want to go up, so here. So just need to decide where we're going to place it. It might be worth just putting it here. And then what we'll do is we'll add a taper. Should be able to sort of taper that bottom section there. I'll change the extrusion value a little bit because I don't want it too harsh there. What we'll have to do as well is perhaps with this, just going to have a look at its position. Something about there. I'll just maybe just reduce taper a little bit. We'll add an edit poly. Let's do an inset on that, and this can be sort of for where the dial's going to be. So it's going to be something like there. We'll just probably have to push this detail out a little bit more. What I'll do, rather than go back into the stack, I'll just extrude this bottom section a little bit. I think that should work. I think that should be okay. Sort of all covered there. So with that now, we can, you know, grab this, do a union. Should chamfer up quite nicely. So we've got a nice sort of a button area there, and you know, we can come back through. Let's do another circle and do a line to get it in a good position. It's about there. Let's just reduce, oops, on the segments, not the radius. So let's just reduce the radius down a little bit there. Something like this. And we should be able to just get this and have like maybe a little detach button or record button or something like that, and then do you know, we'll do a chamfer on that, like so. Like something like that, and then again, you know, you can do the double chamfer technique. Do radial, get this sort of like that. Maybe what I'll do, I'll just push that scale up. I don't plan to edit this anymore, so we got a nice sort of yeah, sort of that button there, and you know, we can place something on. It's pretty good. And front bit as well, so we can add sort of like more details to here. So you know, we could in theory do like a bit more of a cut if we wanted. We could maybe, you know, cut this at a bit more of an angle. Maybe certainly the back piece as well. So that's always sort of an option, you know, with these sorts of things as well. We could put, you know, paneling going across this way as well, so it doesn't necessarily have to all be on the top section. So we could look to do panel lines across here, which might be cool. So if we do maybe from the left view, let's grab this here, let's do a line. So we just grab, so we can do a panel maybe from here, comes down to about here, like so. Can repeat that process in terms of the extrude. Grab that out, just put that across. Let's use a shell on here. Just have a look. It should be super thin, it shouldn't be too thick. I think I turn these down quite a bit. Let's have a look. Something like that. Let's use that as the cut. Subtract. I've got some really nice sort of, you know, panel detail sort of taking place really. So, you know, it's starting to look pretty good. Can add some features on here now, so we can put maybe some indentations or something along the front, especially here as well. Maybe what we can do is look to maybe use a clone here of this. So there's a little bit of an issue here with sort of how this one's chamfered. So I didn't notice that before. In terms of its chamfer, so it's probably the operation itself, so I didn't notice that. But yeah, we could go through, maybe have a look here. You can just sort of see there where I've just overlapped it a little bit, so it needs to be more, I suppose, pushed in like that. Just yeah, I've just probably done those a little bit too much. Look, and just push this one in just so there's no overlap there. Okay, so we could probably grab this operation as well. So let's just right click, and what we can do, extract operation copy, grab this. You know, we can move it along here like so. Rotate it sort of 90 there. Let's grab our align. Should be able to go into X, and then we can get this into position what we'd like, and then we can use that as the cutter. Subtract, and then, you know, we've got this another bit of sort of detail there. Could even maybe it might be worth just rotating that one, so we could just grab that. Create sort of an interesting sort of angle like so. So we've got a, you know, bit more of a sort of detail. You can come in here now, maybe combine these shapes a little bit. So it'll be on this side. So let's do a front view. Let's do a circle. Let's jump into perspective here. Now we can bring this like so. What I can do, I'm not going to sort of bother with the scale here. We'll just scale it manually. I mean, what time are we on with it? I've been doing this nearly an hour now, so let's grab maybe something like that. You know, add it as my sort of picker there. We've got a bit of detail. Now the good thing is we've already got some sort of bolts. You know, we could edit these a little bit as well. So we could come through, you know, do some edits to these. I won't do it for the purpose of this one because it's getting a little bit longer. So I can just maybe grab this here, push it into sort of roughly where we want. Now maybe scale that, bring it in. Let's have a look. Just jump into that front view. Looking about there, it's going to be good. You can hold shift and just copy this sort of shape across there. Then I start again just shaping up quite nicely in terms of the design now. It's really nice sort of bevels as well on there, so it's really taking sort of shape there. Yeah, I mean, bottom bit, I won't do the bottom bit, but you know, we can add smaller features and cuts. You know, it's always good to add maybe, you know, little clips and things here. So maybe on this one, let's just jump into that top view. We can do erect there, and what we can do is grab this here. We'll have to, because we're going to chamfer this, we'll change the scale this way. Bring it in here like so. So again, just think about the detail, think about the support detail that you can include. It's really sort of important in terms of these sort of designs. Let's just grab that. And what I want to do is add a edit poly here. I want to grab my edges. Oops, flew off somewhere there. There we go. Grab these edges. Let's do a chamfer. So you can bring these up, something like that. And that's going to be okay. So we've got that selected. Let's grab, make sure I've got my cutter on. So now we've got a sort of a bit of support detail on there as well, which is always good. We can, you know, grab the operation now. You know, we can extract operation as a copy. You know, that could go maybe here as well. So we could do a few of them. So we can grab that one there. Let's get let's grab this object, let's set it as the cutter, subtract. I think I set it as the cutter, subtract. Let's have a look. There we go. So again, we're getting that repeated detail, repeated pattern detail in there, which is pretty cool. You know, probably need to put a few more bits on this, you know. But yeah, it's starting to look quite nice now. There's a lot of details coming on. There's different things, you know, you might want to put here. You know, we can definitely angle this bit. There's a lot we could do to the back here. Different things that we might want to do underneath as well. But that's not bad. All right, so I mean, we're on about an hour now, so I'm gonna sort of wrap that up there, I think, and I think that was a pretty good tutorial. Hopefully you got something out of it and you've seen sort of a decent process in terms of this. Maybe I'll add a few more details to it, so I'll get this rendered out, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So yeah, as always, like, comment and subscribe. I'd always like your opinions on things, so hopefully you can go away and do some design work with this now, this sort of technique and stuff. And I've made this custom cutter tool here, but you can do everything from the default sort of vanilla Max profile. So if you've got the vanilla version, it's absolutely fine. You can still do all this, the cuts and stuff. So it's not something you need this tool to do it. But yeah, that's it for the video now. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. I'll see you in the comments or the next video. Bye bye for now.